Hey, Stephen Young here doing the junkyard crawl at Bernardson Auto Wrecking in Bernardson, Massachusetts. We have here a 1965 Chevelle. Looks to be red, looks to be a super sport, and you have to ask yourself, could it be an actual super sport? And beyond that, could it be an actual Z16 SS 396 in its first year for 1965? We'll get to that in a second. Now you got to remember that 65 was Chevelle's second year of manufacture, and a total of 378,618 were built, and of them 73,912 were super sports, and of those, believe it or not, 8,747 were six-cylinder powered super sport Chevelles. Yes, you get a six-banger in a Chevelle super sport in 64 and 65. In 66, super sport meant 396 big block and nothing less. But this could be a 6, it could be an 8, it could be a Z16. Well, we'll see. Now the Z16 is something that came out in 1965. This is Super Stalkers in Action magazine, and inside of this great magazine is the test of a brandy new Z16 Chevelle. And it says here, quickest street machine ever. Chevrolet doesn't build race cars, question mark. Got to remember, in March of 63, Chevrolet got out of racing, supposedly. But in 65, when they launched this monster with 375 horsepower, 4-speed transmission, and 11-inch drum brakes and all that good stuff. In fact, we look here, we see the Porcupine engine. And they made 201 of these things. And on the right-hand side, a pretty cool thing is the 11-inch drum brakes that were taken from the full-sized Impala line. So these are things that were specific only to the Z16. Finding one of these in a junkyard is like finding Elvis or Elvis, you know, something amazing. Don't think we have one here, but you know, I always say it's a Z16 until you know it's not. Before we start digging in, I want to thank whoever our viewer was that sent me this. This is a pointer. This thing arrived at my house by FedEx, like next day delivery, no address, nothing. So if you sent this to me, thank you. Let's break it out and put it to work. Now we got to remember again, the Z16 Chevelle, 201 cars built. They came with 11-inch Impala drum brakes. So our first thing on this one is to look at the brakes. Let's have a look and see what we got. Okay, here we'll notice this thing works pretty good, but there it is, a lot of space between the drum and the wheel. That's a 9.5 inch. So right there, I'm going to bet this is probably not a Z16. In fact, almost certainly it's not. That's the 9.5 inch drum brake found on all Chevelles, from the 236 banger, even the 194 6 banger, up to the 327 9.5 inch drum. It does have a front sway bar, this puppy right here, but again, it's a small diameter item. The Z16, something like that, would be about as big as your, almost your wrist. I mean, it was pretty darn big. Now the engine is missing on this one, and it's really hard to tell what used to live here. And of course, the cowl tag also long gone. Now, sometimes you look at the clues, you add them up, and you say, well, look at this. Right here on the fender is an aluminum bell housing from some kind of a manual transmission application. But we can't necessarily assume it's from this car. Let's keep looking. Now, down the side of the car, we know it's a super sport. We can't always trust fenders because these get changed out. But the quarter panel does not have the chrome trim that would be part of a regular Malibu. Super sports do not have chrome here. They had chrome down here. So it's an SS, almost certainly. But to confirm SS, we go inside. And this is where we see a bucket seat. But remember, this is a Pontiac bucket seat. We know that because it actually has a Pontiac crest right there in it, and the upholstery goes on a diagonal thing. So this is definitely a Pontiac seat, so we can't really take this as being any kind of gospel. But right next to it, these things right here, these are the brackets for the center console right there, and over here, the second one. So this was definitely a center console car, and in 64 and 5, the only way to get bucket seats in a Chevelle was for it to be a super sport. So we know for sure this is a 65 Chevelle Super Sport. V8 or 6-banger, don't know. Again, there's no VIN, there's no cowl numbers. We don't see the 138 of a V8 Super Sport or the 136 of a 6-cylinder Super Sport. So we don't really know more than that. But with that said, we can still look at what's left. Here at the back, the blacked out taillight surround here. This looks to be the original masking done at General Motors. This here, that is Super Sport only stuff, that black paint. So yeah, we have ourselves a 65 Super Sport. Again, one of 73,912 built. Inside the trunk, the original red paint still kind of shiny here underneath. Kind of sad to see it like that, but here in the trunk, oh, this is very telling. Okay, this is in the trunk. We don't know that it's from the car, But if it is, well, it would make sense. Yes, you could get a 230 six-banger in a Super Sport. Here are the lower rockers. Molding right here. These would have gone down below the door from the fender to the rear wheel opening. Here's the grill right here with the blacked out goodies right here. That Super Sport stuff right there, the blacked out. And of course the headlight surrounds. In fact, more than two. So if this was their project car, and they threw all the empties or the extra stuff into the trunk. Now this car is, well, pretty far along. Now worse cars have been restored. If this was a Z16, this is worth restoring. But as an unknown, maybe six-cylinder Super Sport Chevelle, well, you know, there's better ways to spend your money. Another thing we want to confirm too is that the Z16s were built as a last gasp on a convertible frame, which means that the frames have a C-section with a box plate on them, so they're squared off. We put our hand down here and feel the full frame, and if the hand comes up against a wall, well, Z16 hope renews. Nope. Okay. The frame has an open section inside. So this is not a convertible frame. It's not a Z16 frame. So I would say that's strike 4 on this car being a Z16. One last thing we'll check out is the wheels. Now these are standard like 14 or whatever inch steelies. Super Sports would have had that kind of a wheel with that full wheel cover. Around this side, well, we do have a rally wheel, but let's not fool ourselves. Here's a lesson. A lot of folks see a wheel like this and say, well, look at that. That's a rally wheel. This has got to be a Super Sport, that right there. Well, that's actually the second generation 14x6 rally wheel, first seen on Camaros in 1970 and Chevelles in 71, 72, and all the way up into the Malibus of the late 70s. So that wheel right there is not from 1965. You know, beginners might say, well, look at that, Super Sport wheel, rally wheel. Well, that's actually a second gen rally wheel. It's different from the ones found on Z28s and 67 and Corvettes that year. This is sort of a more 14x6 type deal. So that doesn't say Super Sport in any way, shape, or form. But with that said, it was once a bright red, black interior, center console, you know, Super Sport Chevelle. Kind of sad to see it like this in the boneyard, but you know, maybe someone can turn this into a gasser or do something kind of funky or rat rod with it. There's still hope. You know, it's not totally gone, but that's the story of what we have here. You always want to pay attention to the little details. You never know what you find. And I always say this, it's a Z16 Chevelle until we know it's not. And on this one, we know it's not. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the Steve Maggs YouTube channel.